Let's be honest. Port Charles protects mobsters and monsters better than it protects its own kids, and Rocco is the proof. Soap operas thrive on slow burns, but Port Charles has recently adopted a pace so sluggish that even its most patient residents would be forgiven for checking pulses. Jason and Britt continue orbiting each other like two magnets determined to pretend polarity doesn't exist. They're scripted as star-crossed, yet the only thing crossing is the audience's tolerance. Their dynamic has shifted from romantic tension to a prolonged exercise in incompatibility, one marked by Britt's perpetual foghorn of condescension and Jason's saintly endurance. If kindness and joy are relationship prerequisites, he may need to look outside the hospital entirely. Meanwhile, the introduction of Rory Gibson as Michael stands as one of the rare casting decisions that actually landed. Port Charles is nothing if not a revolving door of recycled personalities, so when someone arrives who feels properly calibrated to the role, it's worth a brief moment of applause before the next storyline swallows him whole. Speculation has reached operatic heights with the theory that Dalton is Faison in a mask, because in this town, resurrection is not only possible but respectable, and advanced disguise technology is practically a neighborhood hobby. Dalton lurking around Emma's school in California and reacting to Rocco in the lab with all the subtlety of a cartoon villain certainly adds fuel. If he pulls off the latex, no one will be surprised, only mildly relieved. Elsewhere in the city's rich tapestry of questionable employment decisions, the head of that conveniently nefarious resort is now working inside Sidwell's mansion, prompting visions of Britt and Jocelyn stumbling upon him like amateur detectives who accidentally wandered into a crossover episode. Port Charles has survived mob wars, serial killers, and several medical crises, but its greatest tradition remains the habit of giving suspicious men gainful employment. Justine's recent actions, ripping up a plea deal with seconds to spare, have drawn predictable outrage, though her logic is painfully familiar to anyone versed in the art of bureaucratic panic. She received doctored evidence too late to do anything rational with it, and in the grand tradition of Port Charles' legal mishaps, she overcorrected. Her sudden terror of appearing biased is almost sweet, in a tragic way. She now wears remorse on her face like poorly blended foundation and seems poised to investigate Dalton's claims personally, as if emotional regret counts as due process. There's also the small matter of her having grown uncomfortably close to Sonny, pizza, cookies, and lasagna, proving once again that romantic entanglements in this town begin not with chemistry, but carbohydrates. And since she can no longer prosecute him without disqualifying herself, she has chosen self-sabotage over professionalism, which is practically a rite of passage in the Port Charles judicial community. With Mayor Collins stepping down, the city needs a new figurehead. Drew has been floated as a candidate, presumably because Port Charles has never shown meaningful concern for qualifications. But the idea of a man who alternates between heroic self-sacrifice and ethically dubious scheming becoming mayor is admittedly on brand. Policing, too, enjoys its inconsistencies. Nathan West has been reinstated without a flicker of controversy, while Britt Westbourne, who at least committed her crimes with dramatic flair, remains unlicensed. Port Charles has always extended grace more generously to men with badges than to women with scalpel skills, but the imbalance is notable nonetheless. Then there's Ned, currently missing in narrative limbo. One assumes he is still in surgery somewhere behind an unmarked curtain, waiting for the writers to remember he exists. The city's collective amnesia could be forgiven if not for the fact that fans have a higher retention rate than the show's own continuity team. Of course, theories abound. Perhaps Stella shot Drew. Perhaps Marco whispered something critical to his father about court proceedings. Speculation thrives in the vacuum where coherent writing should be. The latest criminal plot appears to hinge on Rocco, because when in doubt, Port Charles leans heavily on endangering minors. The sleazy opponent running against Laura, conveniently tied to Sidwell, seems poised to weaponize a child to pressure both Laura and Sonny. Britt may either martyr herself or finally give Jason the ammunition needed to dismantle the conspiracy. The town has seen this strategy before, yet it never grows less grotesque. Sonny could, naturally, resolve the conflict instantly by donating the contested piers to the city, an idea so logical it stands zero chance of happening. Practical solutions are the natural enemies of soap operas. Credit, however, must be given where due. The young actor portraying Rocco delivered scenes last week with more emotional depth than several adult cast members combined. And because no soap discussion is complete without compensation gossip, fans remain endlessly fascinated by the financial hierarchy of the cast. Recurring players are paid per appearance. Contract actors receive bi-weekly salaries. And yes, the assumption that Steve Burton, Laura Wright, and Maurice Benard sit comfortably atop the earnings pyramid is entirely reasonable. Finally, there's Portia, perpetually uncertain about paternity, professionally adept at hypocrisy, and personally committed to making every situation worse. Should the baby belong to Isaiah, the fallout will expose more than one carefully curated facade. Trina will be forced to confront the truth of her mother's moral gymnastics, and Stella will no doubt suffer another round of anxious self-righteousness. The whole family tree may collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. The shadow of Luke and Laura continues to hover over Port Charles like a cultural landmark no one is allowed to renovate. Their wedding, a legendary spectacle that drew 30 million viewers in 1981, remains the gold standard for soap opera excess. The romance has aged about as gracefully as the genre itself, iconic in scope, controversial in content, and permanently welded to the town's mythology. Some adored their union. Others never forgave its moral complications. What both groups share is the knowledge that nothing since has matched that scale, not for lack of trying, but for lack of narrative sanity. In the more contemporary landscape, the threat of Marco's dubious lineage looms. Should Diane and Alexis uncover his criminal pedigree, they will undoubtedly expel him with the brisk efficiency of women who have little patience for inherited corruption. And as for Ned, rumored by some to be careening toward death, the ongoing silence surrounding his medical fate suggests he is experiencing the dreaded soap condition known as temporarily forgotten by the writers. Then there is Jordan, the newest lightning rod in Port Charles' long tradition of misdirected outrage. A woman who has repeatedly attempted to maintain dignity, integrity, and professionalism now finds herself accused of serpentine treachery by residents whose own moral resumes wouldn't withstand a breeze. Trina, usually a competent young woman, delivered a tirade of self-righteous fury toward Jordan, a spectacle fueled more by misplaced loyalty than logic. It echoed the infamous tantrums once directed at Sonny by Jocelyn, as if disrespect toward elders has become an extracurricular activity for the town's youth. Jordan's great crime, if one must label it, was doing her job, an unforgivable sin in a town where ethical boundaries are mere decor. She refrained from discussing confidential operations with Curtis, who, despite being a former law enforcement officer, behaved as though the concept of classified information was an affront to his personal comfort. Yet Jordan continues to absorb the town's misdirected rage with impressive restraint. Her love for Curtis, sincere, long-standing, and inconvenient, has been treated as a threat rather than a complexity. Conversely, Curtis has elevated indecision to an art form. He floats between Portia and Jordan like a man selecting produce, examining each option only to find imaginary bruises. His moral compass spins wildly depending on the lighting. What he condemned in Jordan, a necessary secrecy, he pardons in Portia, who lies repeatedly with no professional justification whatsoever. The hypocrisy is almost athletic. Trina'S vehement defense of Portia, while touching, also reveals the dangers of children inserting themselves into adult marriages. Her moral lecture toward Jordan is destined to age poorly, especially once she witnesses her mother engaged in extracurricular romance with Isaiah. Given the pair's bold habit of turning offices into hotel rooms, the revelation is unlikely to remain hypothetical for long. Portia, for her part, continues her streak of romantic turbulence. Her history of uncertain paternity would be comedic if it weren't so foundational to the plot. The possibility that her new baby belongs to Isaiah has become the town's favorite spectator sport. Should the truth surface, Trina may finally see her mother not as a pillar of wisdom, but as a woman whose grasp on honesty is tenuous at best. Stella, always eager for a meltdown, will undoubtedly amplify the chaos. And Curtis, ever the reactive romantic, will find himself forced to confront the mess he helped cultivate. On the crime front, Dalton's storyline drifts between intrigue and exhaustion. His presence has stretched far beyond its narrative expiration date. Even Britt and Nathan's involvement feels contradictory from scene to scene, cycling between high-stakes terror and casual familiarity. The tone shifts so wildly one could mistake it for two separate storylines stitched together in the editing room by interns. The broader anthology of Port Charles' inconsistency grows daily. Sidwell, who alternates between suave menace and nervous incompetence, cannot decide whether he is a mastermind or someone's bewildered cousin. Drew, once painted as a calculating threat, now leaps between villainous plotting and casual fatherhood. Britt oscillates between jumping at shadows and behaving as though she wandered into a PTA meeting. Even Nathan, who radiates decency, remains shrouded in an aura of mystery. Is he truly himself? Is he being controlled? Is he simply a man with a naturally ambiguous facial expression? Anything is possible, and in Port Charles, the most absurd answer tends to be the correct one. The question of whether Nathan would frame Chase reveals the town's favorite pastime, inventing betrayal where none may exist. Nathan has shown no sign of malevolence, but suspicions bloom easily in soil fertilized by decades of deceit. The reality is that Chase is spiraling all on his own, blinded by tunnel vision and weighed down by poor decisions. If anyone does the framing, it will be Chase framing himself by accident. The town's legal landscape remains equally chaotic. Questions about Tracy reclaiming the Quartermain house resurfaced after a notable programming interruption. The truth? Monica's original will surfaced, the forgery unraveled, and Tracy reclaimed her throne. It involved deceit, blackmail, misplaced documents, and a runaway dog. Essentially a typical Tuesday in the Quartermain universe. General Hospital's legacy of dramatic reveals appears to be crawling at a glacial pace this year. The whodunit involving Alexis once wrapped faster than the current slog. Fans brace themselves for November 17th, a date being marketed as the emotional equivalent of an earthquake. Trina's truth-telling, Dante's reckoning, and Emma's revelations promise shockwaves, though in Port Charles, shock is less a reaction and more a tradition. Meanwhile, Sonny and Laura have forged an unlikely alliance, proof that nothing unites two ideological opposites faster than the wrongful imprisonment of a child. Rocco, languishing in a cold cell, has become the moral catalyst the city didn't know it needed. If the system continues to fail him, Sonny and Laura may topple the entire house of cards just to find justice. Domestic life in Port Charles remains as predictable as a ticking bomb. Even the simple act of watching the show has become contentious. Some viewers claim Hulu trims scenes from daytime broadcasts, as though the platform has taken it upon itself to curate the drama. Trust the universe to make even the viewing experience feel like a subplot. Meanwhile, the town prepares for the long-awaiting conclusion to its latest whodunit. The last murder mystery resolved itself with respectable efficiency. This one has been stretched so thin that even suspense has grown tired. The November 17th crescendo is promised to deliver emotional detonations, Trina's outbursts, Dante's buried sins resurfacing, and Emma setting off a chain reaction Britt never anticipated. The upcoming explosion is less about plot and more about accumulated tension finally demanding release. Jordan's name continues to ricochet through every corner of the drama. Her recent clash with Trina has been hailed as a triumph by those who relish seeing sanctimony punctured. For once, someone challenged the self-righteous narrative that has been allowed to dominate the conversation. But even a well-aimed verbal strike cannot erase the underlying truth. Trina's condemnation stemmed from incomplete knowledge and emotionally driven assumptions. The schadenfreude will be short-lived the moment she discovers Portia's extracurricular activities with Isaiah. Activities that, given their brazen disregard for office boundaries, are guaranteed to erupt into visibility. When that moment comes, humiliation will do what logic could not. As for Jason, he remains the ever-present enigma, steady, unreadable, and utterly determined to rescue Britt once he finally uncovers the truth. He knows she is trapped in her own web of fear, cornered by someone who controls her livelihood and her very longevity. His loyalty is unwavering, almost mechanical, but it is precisely this consistency that makes him the only person capable of pulling her from the quicksand she has willingly stepped into. Rocco's plight deepens as the town debates his innocence with a fervor usually reserved for national elections. He insists he witnessed the truth. No one listens, and while some beg for leniency, others insist that consequences are the inevitable price of justice gone awry. Yet whispers grow that Danny and Charlotte may become the unexpected defenders in this saga, knowing full well that the lab was not vandalized, children saving the day, Port Charles' most reliable institution. The mystery envelope handed to Felicia remains an open wound in the collective memory. Its contents, whether about James, Maxie, or Mac, have yet to receive closure. Loose ends are a Port Charles specialty, but even by the show's standards, this dangling thread has lingered with suspicious permanence. It sits in the background like a ticking clock no one bothers to look at. Curtis, meanwhile, continues to leave a trail of emotional breadcrumbs so inconsistent that even the birds refuse to follow them. One moment he gazes at Jordan as though contemplating a future. The next, Portia's pregnancy sends him scurrying back to domestic obligation. The writers appear determined to keep Jordan pinned as a perpetual backup option, a cruelty that borders on narrative malpractice. Curtis's vacillation is less a character flaw and more an ongoing indictment of his inability to commit without conditions. Jordan, for her part, deserves something better than recycled heartbreak disguised as romantic torment. Her supporters beg for a new romantic lead, someone dignified, devoted, and uninterested in flitting back to other women whenever the plot demands it. Curtis's history with Jordan, once grounded in deep affection, has been eroded by his inability to distinguish between professional secrecy and personal betrayal. His indignation over her undercover work remains one of Port Charles' most impressively illogical stances, particularly given his own experience in law enforcement. The hypocrisy is staggering, the damage is irreversible. Yet Portia fares no better. Her pattern of deception continues to corrode whatever goodwill remains. Curtis's reluctance to definitively choose either woman only underscores the tragedy. Both are too good for the man they're fighting over. But even this narrative dysfunction pales in comparison to what the Ashford-Robinson family has endured this year. Their storylines have been treated as afterthoughts, lacking the structural integrity and narrative investment lavished upon the Quartermains, Spencers, and Corinthoses. It is an all-too-familiar soap opera tradition. Black characters granted screen time, but denied narrative weight. The imbalance is glaring, the inconsistency exhausting. Some cite past eras that handled representation more thoughtfully. Others concede that the genre remains haunted by systemic neglect. Trina'S behavior adds another layer to the discourse. Once beloved for her balance of intelligence and empathy, she now oscillates between emotional impulse and outright disrespect. A symptom of writing that favors conflict over character continuity. She joins a lineage of Port Charles youth who seem contractually obligated to berate their elders, most famously Jocelyn with Carly, and the effect is less empowering than it is grating. The town's narrative inconsistencies continue their parade. One day, Sidwell exudes Machiavellian brilliance. The next, he's barely competent. Drew shifts between diabolical mastermind and casual father figure. Britt alternates between terror and obliviousness. Nathan's storyline veers between heartfelt sincerity and supernatural ambiguity. It is as if the script pages are shuffled like playing cards before each episode. The Dalton arc has overstayed its welcome, clinging to relevance despite dwindling momentum. The Britt-Nathan subplot, oscillating between conspiracy thriller and nostalgic reunion, feels patched together from two incompatible genres. Even the actors appear uncertain which version of reality they're meant to inhabit on any given day. Speculation surrounding Nathan escalates into paranoia. Is he truly himself or merely a puppet? Could he frame Chase? Assist Michael? Undermine the PCPD? The problem is not Nathan. It's Chase's own incompetence. He is one poor decision away from incriminating himself without help from anyone. His fixation on Willow blinds him to the tightening surveillance around him. If a downfall occurs, it will be self-inflicted. Returning to the Quartermain saga, Tracy's reclamation of the family home unfolded with classic finesse. A fake will, a blackmail plot, a dog absconding with key evidence, and the original document emerging from a forgotten box of Alan's belongings. Monica, in her infinite posthumous wisdom, left the estate to Tracy and gifted Ronnie enough money to start fresh in her hometown. The victory was pure Quartermain, messy, dramatic, and utterly satisfying. And thus Port Charles marches on, unsteady, chaotic, endlessly enthralling. Its characters lie, love, betray, and resurrect, with a commitment few cities could endure. The town is a masterpiece of contradiction. Its stories may be inconsistent, its logic tenuous, its pacing erratic, but its heart beats on, fueled by the simple truth that in Port Charles, nothing stays buried forever. Secrets rise, alliances crumble, the past refuses to stay quiet, and tomorrow, the cycle begins again. General Hospital spoilers tease that Henry Hank Dalton could be a goner. He's as bad as Drew Kane, but without the connections to legacy characters, meaning he's much more expendable. We predict he is about to be the subject of a whodunit, based on several clues. Let's explore those clues and the characters most likely to off the Neanderthal. For starters, GH spoilers strongly indicate that a distracted and distraught Mayor Laura Collins could accidentally run over the slimy professor. She has motive since he framed her grandson Rocco Falconeri for destroying his insidious lab, but there are others who would not cry over his demise. Dalton is on Gen Z Sidwell's last nerve, and he would not hesitate to do away with the pest. Red-hot GH spoilers tease that during the week of November 17 to 21st, Sidwell's temper flares, which could lead to him ordering Lackey Pascal to get rid of the professor. In the meantime, Laura threatens Dalton in public, a bad idea. On top of this, when the election results are revealed, it could be curtains for Laura and good news for scam artist Ezra Boyle. It appears that Laura gets in her car later, distraught, and crosses paths with Pascal, who throws Dalton into the path of her car. But if this happens, what a coincidence! Sidwell would solve two problems at the same time, killing problematic Dalton and compromising Laura. Spoilers hint that Laura's makes a gobsmacking discovery on November 20th. Will she find that she's hit Dalton with her car and panic? Hitting anyone would be cause for angst, but Laura has shown that she has reason to want harm to come to Dalton. Previews show that Laura is found crying in her car and Nathan West finds something nearby. This doesn't look good for Laura, no matter the outcome. Tell us, GH fans, has Nathan been reinstated to the PCPD just in time to arrest the mayor for homicide? Be sure to catch up on everything happening with General Hospital right now. Come back here often for the hottest GH updates, news, and spoilers. Get comfortable and gain access to the best soap intel on the web, General Hospital spoilers gossip. Drew Kane has been hard at work plotting and scheming to make it look like Michael Corinthos could have been the perpetrator behind his mysterious shooting. All this time, Drew has maintained that he didn't remember seeing anyone in his living room when he took 2 bullets to the back. But a sudden recollection could bring to mind a convenient memory that it was Michael, the ex-husband of the woman who holds his heart, Willow Tate. It's a neat way to tie up the loose ends of what appears to be Michael trying to frame Willow for the job. There's just one problem. Harrison Chase is rumored to be hot on the trail of the real shooter, and it's going to make heads spin, including his own, when he starts to figure it out. Could it be that Willow is the real shooter after all? Don't get it twisted. Chase also thinks Michael is the real shooter in this case. After all signs point to Michael having planted the weapon, Edward Quartermain's gun, in the room Willow was staying in at Elizabeth Baldwin's place. Moreover, Michael was at the crime scene that night. Tracy Quartermain saw him there, though she hasn't breathed a peep of that to anyone. The point is, Chase thinks Michael looks guilty as sin, and he's set on proving it. That means no one, not even Drew, is going to get him to back off of digging for more clues. Michael isn't worried at all about where Detective Chase's leads might take him. He has told everyone from the outset that he didn't shoot Drew, including Sonny Corinthos, when pressed by his own father on his alleged guilt. When Willow was released on bail last week and walked into the Metro Court to find Michael having an ice cream sundae with Wiley Corinthos and Jacinda Bracken, she stepped away with her ex long enough to tell him she knows he put that gun in her room and set her up. But Michael's smile told another story as he walked away without a care in the world. He's truly not worried about going down for this. It's almost as though he really knows Willow shot Drew, and we're starting to suspect that may be the case. Just because Willow is insistent that she didn't shoot Drew and claiming Michael is framing her doesn't mean it's true, but it also doesn't mean she doesn't really believe that. Recall that Willow's mother, Nina Reeves, has a history of mental instability. Also recall that Willow's late twin sister, Nell Benson Jerome, shares that trait. It's not impossible that Willow has finally reached her own limit. Finding out Drew and Nina had an affair could have been enough to throw Willow into a tailspin and lead her to Drew's door in the rain that night. The trauma of what she had done could have caused a mental break that left her without memory of it. Michael could have seen the whole thing go down. Thus, if Chase's clues start stacking up and pointing back to Willow instead of Drew, he'll have to wrestle with what he's going to do with that, and Drew will be none too pleased. Will Drew forgive Willow? Will Willow remember pulling the trigger? General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of November 17th, 2025. Fans can expect Michael Corinthos to introduce Jacinda Bracken to Sonny Corinthos. Rocco Falconeri's loved ones battle to clear the teenager's name. Plus, Britt Westbourne angrily confronts Emma Scorpio Drake. Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Jacinda. The blonde is getting acquainted with all sorts of people in Port Charles. Even though Michael has been warned this isn't a great idea, he is continuing to fake his romance with Jacinda. Even though it's for show to cement their joint alibi, it seems they could fall for each other. Michael previously introduced Jacinda to Molly Lansing Davis and Christina Corinthos Davis. Let's just say it was a tad awkward. So, how is Sonny going to react when he meets Jacinda? Over with Rocco, he went to court, and everyone expected him to be handed a misdemeanor or nothing at all. However, it seems that someone is setting the teenager up for a big fall. Now the young man has to face trial and could go to prison. Dante Falconeri loses his temper. Elsewhere, Lulu Spencer updates Carly Spencer about what's happened with Rocco. There is also Giovanni Gio Palmieri, who is consumed with guilt over Rocco's arrest. The young man ends up confessing to Brooklyn Quartermain. General Hospital spoilers for the week of November 17th reveal that Britt has a fierce confrontation with Emma. The young lady tries to leave, but Britt grabs her. Emma yells to let her go, but Britt refuses until they get a few things straight. Gen Z Sidwell will be furious over Britt's update. Then, Britt gives someone an ultimatum. Later in the week, Britt is rattled. By Friday, expect the doctor to get interrogated by Jason Morgan. Fans can also expect Laura Collins to get the election results. The very next day, she is stunned. Trina Robinson thinks about confessing. Meanwhile, Vaughn meets with Jocelyn Jacks. Elsewhere, Jack Brennan grills Carly. Harrison Chase provides an update to Alexis Davis. The attorney will also have a chat with Felicia Scorpio. This could be very bad news for a pregnant Portia Robinson, so stay tuned. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of November 17th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. General Hospital spoilers and updates suggest that Pascal might be compelled to take the drastic step of eliminating Professor Henry Hank Dalton on orders from Jens Sidwell. Is it possible that Sidwell has reached a breaking point and concluded that the troublesome professor must be dealt with permanently? Sidwell has already expressed his frustration with Dalton's lack of advancement, which led to Dalton being demoted to a position under Britt Westbourne. To add insult to injury, Britt has also reported Dalton for attempting to propose a new profitable deal that completely excluded Sidwell. Now, Dalton is once again defying Sidwell by refusing to withdraw the break-in charges against Rocco Falconeri. The The last thing they want is for the police to start investigating the true happenings within the lab, yet Dalton seems too agitated to consider the consequences. After feeling deeply humiliated by Laura Collins, Dalton is hell-bent on seeking revenge by targeting her grandson, determined to make him pay for the perceived slight. Dalton has a knack for demonstrating that he is an unpredictable wild card, consistently showing his inability to adhere to instructions. Following his dramatic exit from Sidwell during the November 13th episode of GH, Sidwell's facial expression suggested that trouble was brewing. Dalton is a problem that requires immediate attention, which might have been what Sidwell was contemplating at that moment. Should Sidwell choose to eliminate Dalton from the equation, it could very well become a task for Pascal. Even though Pascal is the new butler at Windermere, he possesses a wealth of experience in executing lethal commands. This was clearly illustrated during Pascal's tenure overseeing operations at the Five Poppies Resort, Sidwell. Might conclude that Dalton needs to be dealt with and enlist Pascal to carry out that mission. Naturally, Sidwell would prefer to leave no evidence that could link him to Dalton's potential downfall. There is a chance that Sidwell could attempt to frame Sonny Corinthos due to his connection with Rocco Falconeri, thereby creating yet another complication for the mob boss. Alternatively, Sidwell might simply wish for Dalton to vanish, or could try to stage the situation to appear as an accident. Regardless of the approach, it seems that Dalton's time is running out, so be sure to stay tuned for any updates regarding the ominous developments surrounding the professor. General Hospital spoilers reveal Ned Quartermain's life is hanging in the balance, and the Quartermain family is rallying around the hospital, waiting for news of whether their whole world is soon to be turned upside down. But few will feel the threat of this loss the same way that Brooke Lynn Quartermain will. Waiting on news of whether she is about to lose her father is going to put her through the ringer. As she leans on Harrison Chase for support, it might help bridge the gap between husband and wife right now as this couple straddles the chasm created by Michael Corinthos and Willow Tate. But rumor has it, Olivia Quartermain may be the one to shed some light on how Brooke Lynn is currently looking at her hubby, and it may not be the way we think. Just before Brooke Lynn found out her father had a heart attack, she and Chase were taking jabs at one another and having it out over their disagreement about Michael and Willow. Michael has positioned himself well in his custody case, and now even better in the case of Drew Kane's shooting. But Chase has jumped on board Team Willow, and he's growing more angry with Michael with each passing day. By the time she read him the riot act, Brooke Lynn was already starting to soften toward her husband. She might not agree with Chase that Willow is innocent, or that Michael framed her, but she still loves her husband's devotion to helping the people he cares about. If Chase stays by her side throughout this struggle with Ned's health, they may have smooth sailing, but if he can't help but be distracted by Willow, new problems could arise. Willow just got released on bail, thanks to Alexis Davis, and she's going to make certain that she pays it forward to Chase for all of his help. Acting as a citizen with a bone to pick on the outside of law enforcement, he has been showing up for Willow in ways that no one else has, including Drew. It was clear from their interactions when Chase came to visit Willow in jail that she was feeling a little too grateful to him. With a history like hers, it won't be long before Willow is conflating her gratitude with love. Will that throw a wrench into Brooke Lynn's peace treaty with Chase when she's in such a vulnerable space and worrying about the outcome of her father's bypass surgery? Brooke Lynn could start to question her husband's faithfulness soon, and it might lead her to think back on similar mistakes her father has made in the past. Will Olivia and Ned's marriage serve as a testament to her that she and Chase can make it through anything that lies ahead? Or will the sense of betrayal of coming second to Willow's plight in her own time of need send Brooke Lynn reeling? Until now, she hasn't been too concerned that Chase's commitment to helping Willow means anything more than him helping a friend. But seeing the two of them together could paint a very different picture. Who needs Chase more right now? Can the strength of her family and the understanding of just how short and fragile life is as Ned teeters on the brink keep Brooke Lynn holding on to her marriage even when she thinks Chase might let it go? Stay tuned for more GH news and spoilers to find out. These election results could change everything in Port Charles. An important election, a jailed son, and a determined ex-husband. These are the three major moments to watch out for this week on General Hospital. It was certainly an election day to remember in Port Charles. After missing her final debate against Ezra, Laura chose her grandson over her career and attended Rocco's arraignment. But none of that stopped the people of Port Charles from voting. On Wednesday, Port Charles will learn the results of the election. Not only will we find out who the mayor is, but we'll also learn the results of Measure C and the fate of Sonny's peers. Whatever happens, look for Laura to make a shocking discovery on Thursday, while Sonny doesn't seem too worried when Michael introduces him to Jacinda. Now that Rocco's been placed in jail, his loved ones aren't backing down without a fight. They know there's something off about Dalton's story, and they're ready to prove it. General Hospital spoilers for November 17th. Tease that Dante, despite just being named acting police commissioner, will lose his temper while Lulu confides in Carly. By Tuesday, it will be Dante confiding in Lulu. Could their son's legal trouble and future in jeopardy be the thing that finally brings Lante back together? That is, if Nathan doesn't get in the way when he offers Lulu a listening ear on Wednesday. Chase is continuing his streak of being too thoughtful for his own good. He's determined to prove Willow's innocence, and in doing that, he needs to prove Michael's guilty. Despite Brooklyn's clear objections, Chase continues his investigation on Thursday, and by the end of the week, he's said to have news for Alexis. But after Alexis meets with Felicia at the start of the week about their investigation into Portia, it may be Alexis who has news for Chase. Here's everything you might have missed this week in Port Charles. General Hospital spoilers for November 17th, 21st. Tease the aftermath of Rocco's sacrifice after a rough week for the PCPD. Sonny reminded Michael what's at stake if he continues his vendetta against Willow. Chase visited Willow in Pentonville with a plan to exonerate her and get proof on Michael, while Alexis got Willow a new arraignment. Michael told Nina that she can spend time with Wiley. Dante warned Brooklyn that Chase may be risking his career to help Willow. Britt asked Portia to help her get her old job back and noted that she can tell she's pregnant. Ned found out that Drew stole Tracy's boxes, and for so angry, he had a heart attack, during which Drew left him outside of Bobby's to die. Emma and Gio found Ned struggling outside of Bobby's, and Emma got Britt to help revive him. When Ned got to the hospital, Gio called Olivia, and they learned he'll need bypass surgery. Elizabeth felt wary about Lucas moving into Windermere. Charlotte, Danny, and Rocco got the key fob and decided to break into the lab themselves. Brooklyn warned Chase not to put his badge on the line for Willow. Michael let Wiley have dessert with him and Jacinda, much to Nina's. Later, Willow walked in and spotted them. Dante became acting police commissioner and hired back Nathan. Jason stopped Britt from digging her hole deeper with Portia as they worked on Ned. When the kids broke into the lab, Dalton came in and caught Rocco. He brought him to the auditorium, where Laura and Ezra were preparing for their final debate. Willow tore into Michael for allowing Wiley to meet Jacinda. Drew reminded Alexis what's at stake if she doesn't prove Michael shot him. Laura ditched the debate when Dalton had Rocco arrested. Dante was forced to be the commissioner instead of Dad during Rocco's arrest. Chase and Nathan got to know each other as their new partners. Britt asked Sidwell to get Dalton to back off of Rocco. Molly continued writing her new book. When Rick offered to represent Sonny, Sonny asked him to prove himself by representing Rocco. Carly lost it when she learned Lucas' plans on moving in with Marco. Trina accused Jordan of coming between her parents, while Stella admitted to Curtis she can tell Portia's pregnant. ADA. Turner offered a plea deal for Rocco, but when Dalton lied about Rocco trashing his lab, Justine was forced to retract the plea deal and charge Rocco, leading to Rocco being hauled off to jail until his bail hearing. Laura and Sonny were both certain something wasn't right about Dalton's story. General Hospital spoilers are in for the week of November 17th, 2025. Fans can expect Vaughn to return. Jacinda Brickell meets Sonny Corinthos. Plus, what is going to happen with Rocco Falconeri's case? Keep reading, and let's talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. Let's start off with Jacinda and Michael Corinthos. Despite Jacinda's prior occupation and scandal with Drew Kane, the two have a fake romance that might turn real. The two are also each other's alibis in Drew's shooting. People have already warned Michael that this might not be the best idea. However, they have already gone public. When Michael introduced Jacinda to Christina Corinthos Davis, it was awkward and weird. Next, Jacinda will meet Sonny. There is also Rocco, who exposed himself at the lab to protect Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine. Everyone was thinking Rocco would be facing a misdemeanor. However, at court, there was a bombshell when Justine Turner told the judge there was a lot more damage to the lab than previously thought. Now Rocco is facing trial and could go to prison. Lulu Spencer will turn to Carly Spencer. Meanwhile, Dante Falconeri loses his temper. Plus, Giovanni Gio Palmieri confesses to Brooklyn Quartermain. General Hospital spoilers for the week of November 17th reveal that Britt Westbourne confronts Emma at the hospital. While the college student tries to leave, Britt grabs her by the arm. The doctor declares that Emma isn't going anywhere until they get a few things straight. Early on in the week, Jen Sidwell is left fuming. That same day, Britt issues an ultimatum. Toward the end of the week, Britt gets shaken. Then on Friday, she gets grilled by Jason Morgan. There is also the election results. Then, the next day, Laura Collins gets a shock. Fans can also expect Trina Robinson to consider confessing. Vaughn summons Jocelyn Jacks. Jack Brennan questions Carly. Harrison Chase has news for Alexis Davis. Alexis will also update Jason. The lawyer will also confer with Felicia Scorpio. So, this is bad news for Portia Robinson. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most during the week of November 17th, 2025? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Remember to keep watching the soap on ABC to find out what happens next. General Hospital spoilers and updates for Monday, November 17th tease Portia Robinson's pushback and Gio Palmieri's confession. Plus, Lulu Spencer is desperate and Laura Collins lashes out. Laura's fury boils over. Laura publicly accuses her rivals of lying, determined to expose whoever framed Rocco, even if it costs her politically. Britt and Emma's confrontation. Britt's harsh showdown with Emma reveals the fallout from the lab break-in, forcing both to face what really happened. Gio's guilt and Lulu's desperation. Gio confesses the truth to Brooklyn, while Lulu turns to Carly in a last-ditch effort to keep her son out of prison. At GH, near the nurses' station, Britt Westbourne confronts Emma Scorpio Drake. She grabs her by the arm, bringing a clapback by Emma, shouting to Britt, "Get off of me!" Britt, like a stern kindergarten teacher to an unruly child, tells Emma, "Not until you and I get a few things straight." Britt is preparing to inform Emma that there have been no animals harmed in the creation of whatever is being worked on in Professor Henry Dalton's lab. But even more, Britt is probably laying into Emma for something she already regrets getting Rocco Falconeri involved over his head. In the meantime, at the Quartermain mansion, Gio makes a confession to his mother, Brooklyn Quartermain. Brooklyn looks shocked as Gio tells her that he's the reason that Rocco broke into the lab. Gio had asked Rocco, Charlotte Cassadine, and Danny Morgan to be lookouts while he and Emma broke into the lab and had recruited Rocco to steal Britt's key fob. That part of it is true, although as Gio and Emma stayed at GH after finding Ned Quartermain in distress, the kids took it upon themselves to break in. But Gio, being an adult, whereas Rocco is a teenager, takes responsibility. Elsewhere, Rick Lansing and Alexis Davis have a discussion likely about making amends. Rick may have told Alexis that he and Sonny Corinthos had made peace, the reason why Rick had represented Rocco in court. Rick seems to be suggesting that he and Alexis make peace as well, and do what is best for their mutual family. Alexis seems like she may not quite be in agreement with Rick, going by the look on her face. But Rick tells her that he and she should do the same. At Bobby's, Lulu is desperate over Rocco's situation and talks to Carly Spencer about it. She tells her cousin Rocco may be headed to prison unless she does something drastic. Clearly, Rocco was framed because he hadn't done anything inside that lab except shuffle some papers, although he, Charlotte, and Danny all saw what was on the computers. Of course, they didn't realize what they were looking at or what it all meant. All they knew was Dalton didn't have any lab animals in the lab. It's a good chance that if the lab was sabotaged in any way, Dalton did it himself to cover any evidence. It may be Dalton Laura lashes out at, or possibly acting district attorney Justine Turner, or perhaps even Ezra Boyle. It appears that a press conference is being held in a setting that resembles the PCPD, or perhaps the intake area of Pentonville. She looks someone straight in the eye, pointing her finger and shouting, "You are a liar!" If Laura has anything to do with it at all, she is not going to stand for her grandson being framed, especially not if it's a very ugly political play. As angry as she is, it's very possible that heads will roll. Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to check back with Soap Opera Spy for all the latest General Hospital spoilers, news, rumors, comings and goings, and updates.